Hi there, Órla Tobin here, Head of Goodbody Private, and I'm delighted to be joined by our Head of Tax, Catriona Coady, to discuss women and inheritance. Catriona recently authored our Inheritance Guide, A Lasting Legacy, a guide to estate planning in Ireland, so no better lady to answer these questions. Hi Catriona, how are you?
Hi Órla.
It's good to have you here, thanks for joining us. First question, are there any issues for women in particular to consider when inheriting wealth?
So I think a lot of women may have naturally taken on a caregiving role, so they may not have had the time to actually think about the implications of what they might be inheriting from a tax or legal perspective. So just naturally through that particular role, they haven't actually taken time to take stock of what might be coming their way or what they might be thinking of passing on to somebody else. I would also say that in relation to inheriting from parents, for example, they may not be aware of all the rules in relation to what they might have previously received, or they may have a cohabitant, in which case it's not necessarily a spouse, whereas inheritances between spouses are tax-free. So there may be implications in relation to that. So it's important to be aware also of what type of assets might be coming your way, as there might be exemptions available in the context of a dwelling house if that's from a cohabitant, or there may actually be tax to pay.
There's a lot to consider.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Catriona, sometimes life can throw curveballs, whether it be a marriage ending, whether it be divorce, whether it be, I suppose, someone passing away, and life can change. How would you advise women to, not prepare for these events, but to ensure that they're covered and financially confident to get through these events? Or if these events happen, how can they move forward?
So I think financial education is key. So that's one of the main objectives of the investment club. So really arming yourself with as much information as possible regarding finances. And that's taking into account understanding every type of asset base that you might have or might ultimately inherit, and how it will be treated from a tax perspective, but also how it will behave in a financial context. So liquidity is an important issue, and understanding, if an event were to come at you, how much income would you need to maintain a certain lifestyle? So the issue of annual living expenses is always a key one, particularly when these financial events or significant life events that have a financial impact arise. So it's very important to understand, as I say, when I talk about financial implications, I'm really talking about tax, legal and investment and savings issues that might arise, such that you're well covered for these events that can be thrown at you effectively.
Unpredictable.
Exactly.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So what advice would you give to women inheriting wealth who may feel underprepared or excluded from financial decision making?
So I think communication is absolutely key in that situation. Now, communication in relation to inheritance can be a difficult or a touchy subject to broach, but time and again I've seen where speculation can actually lead to disputes around inheritance across the board. So from people inheriting or from passing on wealth to the next generation, for example. So when plans are actually openly discussed, and they don't have to be the full plans, but some sense of what might ultimately happen, that's very valuable in a family context. So as difficult as it might seem, communication is very important.
Have you observed any trends in how women plan to pass on inherited wealth themselves?
There's no major difference, but what I will say is that very often we want to look after children, siblings, and maybe even vulnerable relatives first, without taking into account our own circumstances. So in a rush to actually help others, we overlook our own financial needs.
Okay, forget ourselves?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's really important to think about what it is that you're going to need before you make any rush decisions in relation to passing on wealth.
It's like putting on the mask on the airplane for you.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
Right.
And I suppose think about, you might want to save tax, and that might be your overriding objective as well in passing on the wealth. But it's just stop and take account of your own situation first.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Catriona. As insightful as always, and for those who haven't read Catriona's guide, Lasting Legacy, you should do so. If you have any queries for any of our portfolio managers, financial advisors, or Catriona herself, please email us at investmentclub@goodbody.ie. Thank you.